It's Ken Harbaugh with Against All Enemies on the MeidasTouch Network. I've got former Navy F-18 pilot Mike Smith back on the show to talk about Republican hypocrisy, and what a week it has been for that. From Alabama Senator Katie Britt's fabrication of the story at the center of her State of the Union response, to Mitch McConnell saying he would endorse Donald Trump for president after blaming him for the J6 insurrection. Mike Smith is a board member at Veterans for Responsible Leadership, which is one of the organizations I'm highlighting between now and November. They're doing great work holding the liars and the hypocrites accountable. Here's me and Mike. So, Mike, I've got pulled up here your tweet at Veterans for Responsible Leadership about Representative Mike Garcia. You're a former F-18 pilot, Navy Academy graduate, like Congressman Garcia, and you call him out. I want the theme for today to be Republican hypocrisy and the need to call it out. But tell us about the Midshipman Oath at the Academy and the need to hold your brothers and sisters in arms accountable when they lie.
Yeah, it's anybody in the service knows how important ethics is to like a leadership component, right? And it's like it's drilled in you from day one, whether you're an enlisted sailor at boot camp or in my case I was a midshipman at the Naval Academy. And one of the things to talk about the Naval Academy is the honor concept. And you can shorten it down to do not lie, cheat, and steal. That's very similar. But like very specifically, there's more to do not lie, which is that you're a person of integrity and that you stand for that which is right. You tell the truth and ensure that the full truth is known. So it's not just enough to get around on technicalities. The idea here is that a truthful person this is something that is internalized in who they are, and that they speak about it so that way everybody understands the full context. And so the post that you're referring to was Representative Garcia from representative from Orange County, former F-18 guy. I didn't know him in the community, but I knew people that knew him, and he had a fairly good rep. And the post that he's talked was about bragging about like some of the money that he had brought to the district. But the full truth of the matter is that he did no such thing. He'd actually voted against it. And it's a lie. It's just bluntly a lie. And so it makes me, I've been thinking a little bit about like what drives that sort of behavior. Because again, the guy had a good reputation. He had the same educational experience that talked about how you need to tell the full truth. And I think it's just one of those lie down with dogs and get up with fleas sort of scenarios. Like the company he's keeping is corrupting his ethics. And I think he's a good person and has like a lot of capacity that way. But he's surrounded himself with people that are telling him that this is an okay thing to do. And it is very much not.
This story has repeated itself so many times in the wake of every major piece of legislation passed by the Biden administration, after the CHIPS Act, after the infrastructure bill, after the Inflation Reduction Act. You see Republicans go back to their districts and hold up the novelty checks or brag about bringing money back to the district. And in almost every single case, they voted against that, yet they are lying to take credit for it. In an election year, how can we leverage that and call it out?
Just not accepting a lie, I think, is the first step of it. Everybody has an obligation to talk about it. And that includes in small personal interactions that you have with friends and family. You don't have to be aggressive about it, but you just need to say like, no, that's not true. And, you have to insist upon facts. I know that, the former guys, people like to talk about like an alternative facts, and we have an alternative media universe. And like, there seems to be just like an alternative reality that a lot of folks are living in here. But at the end of the day, the only way that this is going to go away is if all of us collectively stand up and say, enough, we're done. Stick to the truth. And if you're not willing to talk about the truth, you're dealing yourself out of the conversation. I'm just not interested in talking to you anymore.
Well, that alternative reality is no longer hypothetical for so many Americans. I'll just point to Alabama as a case in point with this outrageous decision by the Alabama Supreme Court regarding IVF. The theoretical imposition on women's reproductive rights has now had dramatic effects on women across the country, and that's just the next step. They've gone after abortion access. They, in some states, are talking about going after contraceptive access, and now they've gone after IVF, and it has had a dramatic effect on women in that state. But you have Republicans in the House and some in the Senate who have joined for all intents and purposes, the Alabama Supreme Court in limiting that access. And yet the hypocrisy rears its head yet again. Our friend and fellow Navy pilot, Amy McGrath, called out that hypocrisy in this tweet right here. And this is in the in the aftermath of Senator Katie Britt from Alabama, her response to the State of the Union. I'll play this clip and then would love your thoughts on it.
We are the party of hard-working parents and families, and we want to give you and your children the opportunities to thrive. And we want families to grow. It's why we strongly support continued nationwide access to in vitro fertilization. We want to help loving moms and dads bring precious life into this world. Wesley and I believe there is no greater blessing in life than our children.
Okay, Mike, setting aside for a second the absolute cringiness of that video, I'll talk with someone else about that. We'll take that on in a different episode. But the content is just a bald-faced lie. The Republican Senate caucus, so many of them voted against the exact measure proposed by Tammy Duckworth, who would know better, that would provide this guarantee to women everywhere.
It's a lie in multiple dimensions. The first dimension is that it's clearly a lie about like that they're willing to support this on like the federal level. There was a bill that was up, it was rejected, they all voted against it. The common talking point amongst the federal level of the GOP right now is that this is a states' rights issue. And that needs to be, which is kind of absurd because that's in direct contradiction to what she just said, is we support this at the federal level. But the second part is the deeper lie. It's the lie that that quote leaders are telling to their constituents about what's going on when it comes to women's access to healthcare and to what it means to be about like the beginning of life. And so if they feel very strongly that life begins at conception, there's a whole host of things that are surround that. And one of those is that if the IVF is pretty much off the table, at least according to current medical practices. And if you believe that that is a thing, then and that like that's where this starts, then IVF has to be off the table according to their logical framework. But they want to pick and choose. They want to lie about what the reality is. Well, no. We're about life as long as it fits this definition for us when it's convenient. And that is not a truth. That's a lie. They've lied to themselves and they've lied to their constituents in order to make themselves feel more comfortable about this. They want to be able to use power to force other people to comply with effectively an arbitrary standard. But they want to be comforted when it suits them. And it's not how we can operate in a democratic society. We have to be operating off of common truths.
This is one case in particular where their ambitions have caught up to them. They're the proverbial dog that caught the car. America is waking up to the fact that their extremism on this issue is going to have a dramatic impact on our lives, on women's lives in particular. And a lot of them seem absolutely terrified now that the zealots in their movement have won the day and are getting their way in states like Alabama. And you see it in Senator Britt's affect or presentation here. They are doing everything they can to mix metaphors here, to put the genie back in the bottle. But I think they have been exposed for the hypocrites they are.
again, it just comes down to a component of ethical leadership. You have to be willing to tell hard truths about what it is. The reason we have a representative democracy is that we elect these people to take an ethical framework and to learn about all the complex issues that surround, the largest economy in the world, the leading military power in the world. There's a lot of complex stuff, and we use representatives and senators in order to use their ethical framework to evaluate and to make smart decisions about it. But if they're not willing to lead from a place of ethics, to stand from a place of truth, it's just a fool's errand. They can't do it. And so as a result, they're left with this at the end. They're now at the end of the slippery slope. It goes a little further, but we don't want it to. That leads to some really rough places. But they're kind of down at the end of the slippery slope. They forgot to stand up for what was right for so many years. And now we're all collectively dealing with the consequences of that lie.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Between now and the election, I'm going to highlight a handful of critical pro-democracy efforts that I want you to know about. The first of these is Veterans for Responsible Leadership, or VFRL. It's an organization on the front lines of the battle to protect our democratic safeguards and to hold accountable those who would dismantle them. VFRL's number one priority between now and November is preventing Donald Trump from being reelected. As an organization led by veterans, VFRL is bringing to bear all that experience and credibility to persuade other veterans and military family members that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote that undermines the very Constitution that those in the military swore to uphold. Here's where VFRL needs your help. If you are a veteran or a family member of one, and if you're looking for ways to make meaningful contributions between now and November, go to VFRL.org. The team there is working on a number of critical initiatives that will make a difference in the coming presidential election. But they need more veteran voices and more volunteers. If you're up for it, go to VFRL.org and sign up. I'll have more updates in the coming months on what they have planned, but trust me, it'll be worth your time. Thanks. Well, we're going to end with one of the ultimate examples of leadership absent ethics, and that is Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, once the majority leader, one of the most powerful men in America after January 6th, saw clearly the role the former president played, called him out, and here you have him saying he will endorse him for president in 2024.
How do you reconcile your Trump endorsement with the fact that you called him practically and morally responsible for January 6th and the fact that he insulted you and your wife repeatedly?
On February the 25th, 2021, shortly after the attack on the Capitol, I was asked a similar question, and I said I would support the nominee for president even if it were the former president.
Mr. McConnell, in April of last year, you indicated, you didn't really directly answer the question as to whether or not you were comfortable with Mr. Trump if he was in the middle of criminal trials and indictments, he was the nominee. I presume that means you're comfortable with it.
I don't have anything to add to what I just said. I said in February of 2021, shortly after the attack on the Capitol, that I would support President Trump if he were the nominee of our party, and he obviously is going to be the nominee of our party. Alex?
Leader McConnell,
Mike, your thoughts. I mean, here we have one of the most senior Republicans in the country completely folding, not just in the face of the attacks the former president led against our democracy, against the country, but attacks against his own family, his own personal honor. I cannot think of many greater examples of political cowardice than this.
It's an absolute groveling. He's the handmaiden of Trumpism. He's the one that helped to bring it. He had constitutional duty twice when presented with the opportunity to act upon impeachment and to remove the president from office. Both times, including the second time where he, like the action that brought that about was a threat upon Mitch McConnell's life. He failed to do that. It's just, he's craven. He's just lacking any sort of moral center and any sort of sense of duty towards the office that he's held into this country that's supported him.
Well, you're absolutely right. He is craven. I don't know if it makes it worse or better. It's just bad. He has nothing to lose here. He's on his way out, and he still bends the knee and kisses the ring. Mike, we're going to put a link to Veterans for Responsible Leadership at the bottom. Really proud of what you're doing over there. Let's talk again soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, Ken.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.